Thank you, Brian.
Oh, there we
Yeah,
go.
here we go.
Perfect. So, and just real quick, I just want to say hello and welcome, introduce myself real quick. We haven't met everyone on this call, but I'm Brian Winsel. I'm the global partner leader for the Yum Brands account here at Cargill. So I sit in, I'm in California, but lead our global business with Yum Brands. So been at Cargill about 8 years. Great to have you guys with us and excited to share kind of our team and some knowledge around oil, especially from our European team that's been working super closely with Yum in that region. So just real quick, Wendy, you want to introduce yourself and then we can turn it over to our team.
Yeah, sure. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Wendy Phelps. Excuse me. It is early for me, though, not as early as Brian. I'm based out of Wichita, Kansas. I currently am the Global Partner Innovation Leader. So I partner with Brian on all things Yum globally and with our amazing technical team, working together with your team as well to bring new solutions and services to Yum globally. So it's been a lot of fun. I've been working with your team for almost 3 years now, but I've been with Cargill for about 18 years. As I mentioned, I'm based in Wichita, Kansas, which is the place where our North America protein business is headquartered as well. So looking forward to this. As Brian mentioned, Magdalena and Blanche are really our go-to experts in this space. And so we're looking forward to the discussion today. If you guys do have questions, because there is quite a bit of content, please go ahead and put those in the chat and we'll try to answer those as we go along. And then we'll make sure that there's time at the end to also answer some questions. So with that, Blanche, do you want to introduce yourself and then Magdalena as well?
Yes, good morning, afternoon. I don't know on the time difference. Blanche Richard, I'm what indeed what Wendy was referring to, the operational part of the R&D, a bit still the visible part of the R&D, bringing your needs and also coming up with our ideas coming to you. Partner in crime with Magdalena on the Yum accounts with the different markets, working intensively with franchisee brands and the different markets. Based in Isegem, our Belgium factory, where we do have our biggest bottling plant, and I've been in Cargill 20 years in different kind of product range, so also can bring in other activities in addition to oils if needed.
Thank you, Blanche. My name is Magdalena Hidalgo. I'm Spanish. I'm a Strategic Accounts Director for Food Ingredients in Food Service Europe. That's too long. And but the good piece here is that I've been working for oils 15 years in Cargill. Okay, so hopefully I can support you guys today. Usually it takes like 3-4 hours to provide these kind of sessions. So it's going to be a bit challenging today to cover everything. But yeah, I will try and happy to organize a second one in case it's needed. I would like to know, sorry guys, to make this a bit longer than expected, to know for those that has not been introduced to us ever, okay, just to say your name, your title, okay, just to try to picture you better. Thank you.
Okay, I can go. I haven't met any of you guys. We've got a Cargill local team, Guniso and the guys, but yeah, I haven't met any of you. So I'm Nosipho, short for, you can call me Nas. I am based in South Africa, in the Yum Africa RSC. I am a category lead for potatoes, grains, and seeds. For both KFC and Pizza Hut. We obviously overlook the rest of the Africa market here. Great to meet all of you.
Hi, I would go next. I'm Ajitav. I am based out in India and I take care of India business unit. I'm with Yum since 2019. With the new structure change, I am looking after grains as a category, dairy, and fresh produce and oils as category. Okay. Quite excited to learn new things about oil from this call. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ivana. I look after grains and seeds for the Europe, and I'm fairly new to this category, so I'm looking forward to this session and learning more about the world of oils.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Is there anyone else left? Or are we all set? Yeah.
Hi, yeah, my name is Vikram. I'm based out of Singapore. I look after two categories. One is protein and one is oil. Oil is very new and getting a hang of it. This is great opportunity to learn. So I'm looking forward to interacting with all. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, guys. Just some technicalities in order to try to optimize the time. And if you agree, I suggest that you place the questions on the chat, and my colleagues are going to be following on those, and then we can be answering them during the presentation or at the end of the presentation. Because if we need to be interrupting every time there is a question, this is going to get much longer considering the size of the audience. Is that okay for everyone? Yeah. Okay.
Yep, that's great. Thanks.
Fantastic. Does everyone see my screen?
Yes,
Yep.
looks good.
Okay. Is it moving?
Yep.
Fantastic. This is the agenda for today. Okay. Cargill capabilities, global S&D per oil type, manufacturing process, and fatty acid composition that is leading into different attributes for each type of oil. Okay. And let's see if we can cover everything. Okay. The ambition today is to try to cover everything. And starting with, I'm going to be very, very brief on this. Okay. Cargill capabilities. Cargill is one, for those that don't know that, it's one of the largest seeds and fruit originators in the world for oil application, and consequently one of the biggest players in oils globally, if not the biggest. And what do we offer? Okay, basically, we originate wherever there is a relevant crop. We transfer them into crude oils. Those crude oils could be integrated in our supply chain. Majority is like that, or sold in the open market. We refine and do different manufacturing process on the oil, and then convert them into edible oils that could be used in food service, but food manufacturing as well. And then let's gonna go a bit deeper around where are we based, okay, and what's the main pillar of our success. I would say it's thanks to our global origination. Okay, basically Cargill, it's present with a crushing plant. All the green dots are crushing plants. Crushing is when you get a seed or a fruit, you crush it, okay, and you get oil out of it. Crushing plants, in order to be efficient, need to be close to the field, to the land, okay, to the crop. And so wherever there is a relevant crop, Cargill is having a crushing plant. And then the reason for that is because on average, between 20% to 45% of a seed or a fruit is only oil. Okay, so if you are moving around seeds and fruits, that's not very efficient. You're moving byproducts and residues. And so we crush, we produce what is called crude oil, and then we send it to refineries. Refineries are usually close to the final destination, to the markets. So you can see the orange dots are all the refineries we have in the world. Just one example for those based in Europe. In Europe, we have 16 different refineries, okay, and 5 bottling plants. Bottling plants, majority of the cases, I would say, all the cases, I think, in Cargill, bottling plants are integrated in a refinery, okay? And to have fully vertical integration, crush, refinery, and bottling plant, it's not that common, okay? Because not necessarily you have the field close to the market. Some cases, like my hometown in Spain, okay, Spain is one of the largest markets for origination of sunflower and one of the biggest consuming markets of sunflower. So we have crushing, refinery, and packing on the same site. Vicky Morrissey is going to be visiting that next week. And then in terms of access to portfolio, basically, like I mentioned before, we have access to almost anything, any type of oil. You're going to see in the terminology we use that we differentiate between liquid oils and fats, okay, or tropical oils, okay. Liquid oils, the liquid oils are those oils coming mostly from seeds, okay? And when you do the extraction, after the crushing, you get liquid, okay? Because with the fats, after the extraction, you get solid fats, okay? You need to process this furtherly in order to turn it into liquid oil, okay? So that's a terminology that most probably you're gonna hear. Most probably most of you have listened before. Which are the liquids? Sunflower, rapeseed, or canola. Okay, in Europe we call it rapeseed. In North America and Australia they call it canola. Linseed, groundnut. Okay, then we have laurix. Okay, laurix are tropicals, are fats as well, and are those that are not palm oil. Basically, are those oils that are high in lauric acid. Okay, it's palm kernel and coconut. Okay. And then we have palm oil, and then we have what we call specialties and blends, okay? Specialties are crops that are minorities, okay? And blends are unique blends that we tailor-made for our customers' applications. Blanche, let me know if there is any question, please, on the chat. So basically, you have here listed on the left all the main oils that exist, okay? Coconut, palm, oil, string, and sunflower, high-oleic sunflower, rapeseed, canola, etc., etc., etc. And then you have different, when you read here, hydrogenated, intensified, fractionated, is because the base crude oil can be processed differently in order to get different type of textures, okay, or forms for different applications, okay. And in general, everything is refined because refining consists on purifying, cleaning the oil, removing all the unwanted components, and then you hydrogenate or intensify or fractionate depending on what kind of application you want to use that fat or oil for. Basically, you hydrogenate coconut, for instance, in order to produce chocolate coatings, okay, or ice creams, okay. You fractionate, for instance, palm oil in order to turn it into liquid to be used in food service, okay. Those are some examples. But in food service, you are never going to find hydrogenation, certification. You're only going to see liquid oils, okay, coming from palm or coming from seeds. Let's gonna go a bit deeper on supply and demand. Like I said before, crude oils are present in seeds or fruits or beans, okay? And main base oils are soybean oil, palm, coconut, sunflower, canola, olive oil, as some examples. And again, we have global sourcing and global production capabilities. Here you have some pictures about those type of seeds or fruits that I mentioned. It's interesting to see. I don't know how many of those you have ever seen physically. Soy beans, sorry. Soybeans, palm is a fruit, okay? It's a nice fruit with a kernel inside, the white kernel. It's called the palm kernel. So we differentiate between palm oil. Palm oil is what you get out of the flesh, okay? The orange part of the palm, and palm kernel is the oil that you get from the kernel of the palm. Then you have sunflower seeds, okay, and then you have rape seeds, okay, which are very, very little. Let's gonna go into the production, okay. Usually, what kind of crops do you have in the world, okay? So because you are not only growing seeds, okay, for oils application, you are always your majority of the surface is used for wheat or other type of grains, right? And it's important to understand how much we plant and how much production we get out of that, out of every hectare or every acre, right? So majority of the surface is being used for wheat and grains, okay? Between the two represent 60% of the total surface planted in the world. Oilseeds represents only 24%, okay? Palm represents palm trees only occupy 2%, okay, of the global surface. Why is that important? Because palm is the largest crop in the world, okay, when talking about oils, okay. It's a very efficient, it's the most efficient plantation, okay. With only 2% of surface used, you obtain more than 30% of oil, okay, and globally. And so here you have the equivalation, usually the yields, okay, or the production obtained of wheat and grains versus land used, it's equivalent, it's 1-on-1, okay. But then when you consider oilseeds, okay, 24% of the total global land is used, but you obtain only 15% of the total product, okay. And then 2%, only 2% of the land is used for palm, and you obtain 10% of the total products, okay, that you obtain in the world. And we will go into oils equivalent now. Total oil seeds, total seeds and fruits production with oil application, it's around 625 million metric tons, okay, globally. The equivalent in oil is 210 million metric ton. So out of 625, you obtain only 210, okay, of oil. And why is that? And you can see here below in this little chart, you can see that, for instance, rapeseed and canola, 45% of the seed is oil, the rest is meal or residues, okay? In the case of soy, that's much lower, okay? Soybean, it's a tricky product in oils because it's one of the largest crops, but only 18% is oil. It's the only fruit where oil is a byproduct, okay? It's the only product where the demand of oil is not very relevant, okay, to incentivize the production, okay, or the cultivation of the growing of the beans, okay, because the value is on the meal, okay, that is used for feed. And then when talking about palm, you get 23% of oil, okay, out of the fruit. Let's gonna go. I mentioned that the biggest crops, okay, in terms of oil production are palm and soy. If we consider those 210 million metric tons of oil available in the world, 34% is palm, 28% is soy. Between palm and soy represents 70% of the total oil availability in the world. That's very relevant, okay? And then we have canola is the third largest, but only with 15%, okay? And sunflower, it's around 10%. And then the rest are considered specialties, okay? I will send this presentation later. When talking about production or supply and demand, as the population, maybe let's gonna start with the demand. As the population keeps growing, demand keeps growing globally, okay? So every year the demand of oil is bigger. And up to now, luckily, the supply, the production keeps growing as well. Every single type of oil, seed, and fruit keeps growing year on year. You have good years, you have bad years, but structurally, they keep growing. Do they keep growing because more land is being used? Not really. It's because the yields, okay, are being improved, okay? And that's where the attention today on big corporations like Cargill or farmers is put today to make sure that, that the yields are improved. So in that sense, continuous research and development on techniques, on varieties, on water use are crucial in order to be able to confront the challenge of continuous demand growing, okay, and land not finding extra land available in a significant way. Let's gonna focus a bit more in the four big, okay, the big four oils. We said palm, soy, canola, and sunflower, right? These four big represent more than 90%, 90%. Only four type of oils represent more than 90% of the total global oil production. And we said between palm and soy, between 60 to 70%, okay, of that. That's very important, okay, because getting away from those four is extremely risky, okay, in terms of price volatility and in terms of availability, okay. Yeah, so you can see
I
here.
got question as to have we seen the global demand for different oils shifting year over year just due to different factors? Is there anything significant there? And looking forward, are there anything that this group should kind of keep in mind in terms of anticipated changes?
That's a great question, Brian. It depends per geography because every geography has its own dynamics in terms of sustainability, consumer preferences, economics, etc., etc. But every year there are switches, okay, every year because you might have a very good year of palm oil, but maybe it's a catastrophe in canola, okay, or I don't know, or no, very good in canola and very bad in sun. So depending on at the end, total availability, and it's very much related to the price, okay? So if the availability increase, the price decrease, and all the way around. So there's certain switch of demand from one or shift of demand from one oil type to another, but it's limited, okay? Those swifts are not one-on-one. You cannot move everything from one oil to another, okay? Because there are so many implications. But for instance, if we base in Europe in the past 15 to 20 years, there has been a massive shift of palm oil into liquid oils, okay, for sustainability and reasons mostly, okay, and consumer perception. Then I receive very commonly that question, yeah, palm oil is going to be the palm consumption is going to stop, right? The entire world is going to switch away from palm. I'm sorry, that's not possible. And there is not land enough for other oils to replace palm. Okay, we said 34% of the total availability of oils in the world is palm. And as well, the motivations in Europe are totally different to Asia, right? So maybe in Europe, we are very concerned about sustainability practice, but maybe in China, they are not that much, okay? And so switches of demand are happening all the time, okay? And structural ones, I would say the palm consumption in food industry in Europe is the most relevant one, okay? And has moved into blends of sunflower, canola with high oleics, okay? I don't know, Blanche, if you have anything else to add.
No. To add on the point on what you were saying on Asia, there's maybe less health concern on SAFA, but also palm is a local harvest. So the knowledge on palm is much stronger, of course, in Asia. The consumer absorption, so that's also something that helps as well. But indeed, the shifts are very minimal. When you look at the size of soybean and palm, you're not going to get a whole everything in rapeseed or anything like this.
The one thing maybe I'll mention too is I think just going forward, and Ashley, this is a really good question that you asked, is, I think the demand for biofuel is probably one of the biggest factors that is going to impact kind of the S&D. We see that already. We've seen the impact of biofuels on palm oil. Palm oil used to always be the cheapest. That's changed, and a lot of that demand is coming from the biofuel sector. So I think we're waiting on some policy in the U.S. to understand how much of the fuel needs to be blended with biofuel origination and whatnot, and that percentage is really can have a big impact on markets and ultimately pricing, right? And so that ultimately drives changes in where folks are sourcing, the different types of oil. So
that's a great example, Brian.
That's a big one.
This is one of those cases where the annual demand is shifting from one type of oil to another, because like you mentioned, biodiesel is super regulated. Those mandates, those quotas are changing every year. Even within the same year, you have different quotas, different mandates. So it's kind of influencing the market very much. Thank you, Brian, for that great example.
Yeah, and it's a demand on all types of oils, right? Vikram, I saw your question. So soy heavily in the U.S., but palm's a big impact as well in other regions, and then even animal fats like tallow are in demand for biofuels as well too.
Exactly, every type of oil potentially can be used for the biodiesel industry, and that's a big challenge today because, like we said, there is not an excess of oil available in the world. So the more it goes into biodiesel, the less it's available for food, right? So that's a big challenge and represents a huge controversy. But it's true that majority used to be palm, soybean oil, second cheapest oil structurally, traditionally, but then you have the preferences as well, or the economics based on each region. In Europe, for instance, 60% of the rapeseed or canola production in Europe goes into biodiesel. Okay, so so there are multiple factors. Okay, they are not two identical regions in the way they operate versus biodiesel, but it's influencing a lot. Okay, in the availability and the prices and the switching of demand. Palm oil. Okay, we like to go through the origins of each type of oil because I always say that consumer preferences and applications in each region are very determined by their agronomy. Why are you guys using canola in the US? Because it's a national crop in North America, okay? Blended with soybean oil, another national crop in North America. Why in China or in Asia, all Asia, okay? It's all about palm fractions, different fractions of palm oil, because it's the national crop in Southeast Asia, right? Why in Europe is mostly about sunflower, because it's the biggest crop we have in Europe. So our agronomy, it's influencing very much our consumer preferences, because that's what is determining traditionally, historically, availability, okay? And based on that, our taste has been developed when talking about the food industry. Palm oil is a national crop, basically, okay? And 90% of the crop is produced in Asia, between Indonesia and Malaysia, okay? Indonesia represents 57%, Malaysia 27%, and then you have another 40% in Thailand. And then you have some minor production in South America, okay? Ecuador, Colombia, and mostly, right? And then when talking about palm oil, is it consumed all in Asia? Big amount, not all, okay? Palm oil, I think in terms of exports, and it's very much, or imports, it's very much diversified. Everyone everywhere in the world, it's importing palm for different reasons, right? So the biggest exporter is Indonesia, and followed by Malaysia. Makes sense. Those are the biggest origins. And then when talking about the biggest importers, we have India, European Union, China, Pakistan, and all the rest, okay? But there is something very interesting I like to analyze always. Here, I don't know if you see the chart properly, and The orange is food use, or domestic food use. The purple is industrial domestic use, okay? And then you have the yellow bars are the production and the blue lines are the exports, okay? So when talking about, we said Malaysia, Indonesia first and Malaysia second are the biggest origins, right? When talking about Malaysia, basically almost everything they produce, they export it, okay? What they consume locally, it's minor, okay? In Indonesia, it's a bit different. They use like 20%, 30% domestically, and they export the rest. Okay, that's very, very interesting because Malaysia and Indonesia are net exporters. Okay, of palm oil. Okay, and that's a big difference versus other type of oils. When talking about soybean oil production, 50% is done in the Americas, I would say. North America, so US, okay, Argentina, Brazil, okay, and mostly, okay, and then you have a growing production in China. European Union is minor, it's not relevant. But then when talking about exports, okay, the biggest exporter is Argentina, okay, 50% of the oil that is exported is Argentinian. And then on the biggest importers, and this is very much related to economy. Usually it's India 30%, China 10%, Bangladesh 10%, and then some minor levels. I mentioned before that the value of a soybean is not the oil, it's the meal. Okay, 70% of the content of a bean, it's meal. Okay, and that meal is used usually for feed. Okay, feed for poultry feed, swine feed, beef, etc. And that's important to know because, like I shared before, the demand of the oil it's very much influenced by the demand of the feed industry. Let's gonna go through the same type of charts we saw in palm. If we check US, okay, we see that most of the production is domestically used. Exports from the US of soy, it's minor, it's residual. Okay, I would say 10%, only 10% is exported. But when we go to Brazil, that rate of change, okay, Brazil is a big consumer, but the exports, okay, are significant. The challenge here is that the exports in Brazil has been quite volatile, okay, depending on the production side, the value, the country has been promoting to export more, okay, usually in times of low production, high value, Brazilian government has been pushing, okay, goods out of the country in order to increase revenues for the country. And then when we go to Argentina, we said before that 50% of the total exports of soy are having Argentinian origin, right? Yeah, we are seeing that in that chart, okay? Majority of the production, almost 80, 90% of the production, it's exported, okay? Something as well interesting when analyzing soybean oil values, we said the incentive for crushing, it's not, or planting is not coming from the oil, it's coming from the meal. That's challenge number one when analyzing supply and demand and trying to estimate what the market is going to do. Second challenge is that soybean oil is trading in Chicago. Okay, it's one of the most famous futures markets, right? But 80% of the activity in Chicago is pure speculation. It's never translated into physical exchange. That represents a big challenge in terms of predicting soybean prices. Canola, in terms of production, it's one of the most diversified productions, I would say. You have 22% in North America and Canada, 22% in European Union, 20% in China, 14% in India, 7% in Australia. So you have canola everywhere, basically, in every single region. Okay, canola or rapeseed. It's the same name for the same. It's different name, sorry, for the same variety. When talking about imports, European Union is one of the countries that import the most, okay? And we are going to see it later. And Australia, together with Canada, they're the biggest exporters, okay? Production, we mentioned it's in Canada, China. Okay, you can have a look to the pictures later, and European Union. Those are the growing areas. And when talking about well, I will skip this. This is very much European. When going about production, we said that it's a global. This is a real global production. You are growing canola or rapeseed almost in every region. But the calendar, the crop calendar is different region to region, okay? When in Canada, for instance, you plant the canola between May and June and you harvest during late summer, autumn, okay? In the European Union is all the way around. You plant August, September, you plant during end of summer, autumn, and you harvest, okay, June, July. And this is great. Well, this is great for some countries like Europe that are big importers, right? Europe consumption of rapeseed is much bigger than their national crops, right? So we need to import from other origins. And thanks to these, you're guaranteed, thanks to different calendars, growing calendars, you can guarantee a continuous supply into Europe. Because when the European crop is coming to an end, you can start using Australian or Canada, okay, Canadian crop, and all the way around. And when talking about yields, okay, rapeseed oil, it's an interesting oil. From the liquids, sunflower and rapeseed usually are competitors, are direct competitors, okay? Similar in cost, similar in yields, similar in growing areas, okay? And but the yields on rapeseed, okay, the seed yields, okay, are higher in rapeseed than sunflower. That's an incentive always for farmers, okay? That's the main reason. That's the main reason why the rapeseed or canola crop represents 15% of the total global production, and sunflower is only 10%. There is more incentive to plant rapeseed than sunflower because it has higher yields. And when talking about the same production, export, and consumption in rapeseed, we said that Europe is one of the main productive areas or production areas, but it's we don't export any rapeseed or canola, but we import a lot, okay, because our internal consumption, it's significant, okay. When we look into Canada, okay, and the situation is very different. Canada is exporting majority of its production, okay. The local consumption represents only 10%. And that's good for us. Same for Australia. Australia is not reflected here, but it's something very similar. Okay, majority of the Australian canola is being exported. And sunflower. Sunflower is in the European crop. Okay, and nearly 80% of the total sunflower that is being produced in the world, it's happening in Europe. Okay, in Europe as a continent. When I say Europe, I mean European Union, out of European Union and Russia, okay? And if we put Russia and Ukraine together, okay, and that's the main reason why Europe had so many challenges during the most intense times of the war between Russia and Ukraine is because they represent 60, 65%, 70% of the total sunflower availability in the world, okay? European Union produce 18%, okay? And European Union is the biggest importer, okay? So big amount of that oil, Ukrainian oil, is ending in European Union. These are the growing areas of sunflower. We said Russia, Ukraine, European Union, mostly France, okay, and Black Sea area, and Spain. And then when talking about growing calendar, since everything or mostly it's been grown in Europe, 80% is grown in Europe, And the growing calendar is very comparable, okay, country to country, Russia versus Ukraine versus European Union. Usually, the European Union is a bit delayed, okay, but yeah, nothing significant. And then when talking about production, okay, we're saying that Europe, okay, and it's here the colors have changed a bit, and it's one of the biggest producers, but its consumption, the blue line here in this case is the consumption for food, is much larger than the domestic production, right? So that's why we are importing mostly from Ukraine, okay, Black Sea area as well, and because at the moment there are some tensions with Russia. Okay, so most of the exports from Russia are ending in Far East countries. And then you will hear, I'm not gonna go in detail about this, but you're gonna be, most probably you have heard about the high oleic sunflower or high oleic canola, okay? You're using both, okay, in different countries in the world. Those are different varieties to classic sunflower and classic canola, okay? Our varieties are having a higher content, okay, in the oleic acid, okay? The fatty acid composition is different versus the classic version. And both are specialties, okay? I think when talking about high oleic sunflower, global production is around 4 million liters. And when talking about high oleic canola, the global production is around 2-3 million liters, okay, only, okay? So that represents big volatility. But why these oils are very interesting, especially for food service and snacks application, because of its high stability. Those are the most stable oils, okay, in the world, next to palm, okay? When you don't want to use palm, you need to use high oleics in order to have a good resistance to heat, okay? And that's exactly what happens in food service for frying applications or in the snacks industry where you're putting the product under very high temperatures. I'm not gonna go in detail through this, okay? High oleic, when we're talking about high oleic sunflower, it's an European crop, okay? A mostly French crop, okay? It's true that Cargill is one of the big promoters of this kind of crop. We're trying to help because only 5% of the total sunflower is high oleic. We are trying to push to incentivize farmers to cultivate more and more and more. The same in North America with the high oleic canola, because both are very small crops, okay? And Cargill is a big believer, okay, on the need of these type of oils in the future. And in the case of high oleic canola, it's mostly North America and Australia, okay, the origins. But it's true that Russia is starting to plant some. And here you have plenty of the literature around that. Important. We said different type of oils are having different global production. Usually, and I say usually because there might be exceptions. The higher the production, the lower the price. Okay, so usually, historically, palm oil, the purple line, since palm oil is the largest crop, 34% of the total of the global availability, we said, usually it's the lowest in price, but not always. Okay, there are always challenges. Okay, and followed by soybean oil, but not always. Okay, we look into 2023, soybean oil was the most expensive oil. So there are changes in the market, reasons for certain oils to explode, demand to switch, and there is not two identical years. But the good thing is that all main oils are somehow connected because the demand is switching from one to the other based on the price and based on different reasons. So if the palm oil turns too expensive, they're going to be losing demand to other type of oils like soybean oil, like canola, and then the demand will switch, and then the prices will change again. So they are all connected. Okay, that's the only summary I want to do with you guys. And when talking about price drivers, okay, and there is a lot going on: supply, demand, crush margins, biofuels, macroeconomics, politics, many things. You have here a nice and interesting, I can send it separately as well if you want. I find this very useful, especially when you're starting, okay, to work in oils, to paste it on your wall, okay, as a reminder. Crop calendar. Crop calendar is influencing the price evolution very much. Usually during harvest time is when you see the bottom of the market, but not always. There are many exceptions, okay? But as a thumb rule, can be considered. And then manufacturing process, I'm going to quickly, and basically crushing. I said before, it's pressing the seed, pressing the fruit, and then by the action you get oil out of this, okay? And then by the action of solvents, you get additional oil out of the seed or out of the fruit, okay? And those solvents are eliminated afterwards, okay, during the refining. So crushing process is the extraction process, okay? And then when talking about refining process, is the cleaning of the oil process, because out of the crushing you get crude oil, but it's not edible. It's not edible because of the high contaminants presence and other type of residues, right? So during the refining process that consists on different phases, you're removing the gums, you're removing unwanted components like trace metals, like contaminants, other type of contaminants. So you remove coloration as well, you remove off taste, off odor. So basically you are cleaning the oil. The oil, when it starts in the refining process, most of them are dark brown, and when they get out of the refining process, they are almost transparent, okay? And then I leave it to Blanche. How are we doing in terms of?
Sorry, moving. Yeah, so it's. I'll try to make it as a quick one on. Can you hear me properly? By the way, I forgot. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
You're good.
Because so yeah, indeed, covering a bit of what Magdalena has mentioned, that there's a lot of crops that are coming from different regions. They have different taste. And it's a bit also to explain how that goes from a chemical perspective. Maybe pushing one button extra, Magdalena, I don't know why there was an animation. Yes. So basically, if you don't have to remember everything, but it's all oils and fats are actually structured under the same backbones with the glycerol, and then there is fatty acids that are linked to here. So you see here on the graphs there is this carbon chains, and then there is this little up and down. That's the fatty acids symbol. And depending on the type of oil and fat, you have different type of fatty acids. And I like to remember, because we are speaking indeed of frying, and maybe that's not, and also saturated fat sometimes. But we need to remember that oils are absolutely essential for our diet and our balance, because often when you hear about omega-9, omega-3, or omega-6, for example, they are part of fatty acids that are coming from fats. And some actually are essential fatty acids, because our body are not producing that. So that's why we need to get them from fat. So just as remembering as personal insights, oil is very important to our balance. It should not necessarily be seen as oils and fats that are too heavy on our diet. When you look at fatty acids, there's different type of fatty acids. I'll bring it very. You've seen SAFA, so saturated fat, which means that there's no chemical bond. So the bond is a double. So you don't have to remember everything, but it's just that it's a double bond in the chains. So you have saturated fat that have no bonds. You have monounsaturated fat where there's only one bond, and that's why you see on the graph below it's mentioned omega-9. So it's basically where you also find the hyoleics and hyoleic oils, for example. And then you have polyunsaturated fat, so what we tend to say called PUFA, where you find back omega-6 and omega-3 oils. Just as and all the oils have different. All types of oils have different type of fatty acid and have different type of ratio of these fatty acids. And you see that in the next graph. Basically, when you're looking at it from hyoleics and flour, we're saying it's very specific because that's a very low saturated fat. but with a very high monounsaturated fat. And that's what gives also part of its very high stability when you have it under heat conditions. And so not something that you have to know by heart. It's just that step by step you will see some of the oils, and why are the different oils used or not is really because they have different composition in fatty acids. They have the same backbones, but there is a lot of multiple things. And as well as Magdalena was saying, they also come from different crops. So even though we deodorize or we process them, they also have sometimes different smell, taste, and different attributes on that. And that what we see in the next slides, if I remember well. Yeah, maybe I'll cover that one. So from a health perspective, also saturated fat, monounsaturated fat, and polyunsaturated fat have different impact. Here it's mainly speaking about cardiovascular disease as an example, but we know fatty acids have a positive impact on a lot of other health elements. But for example, here, we know that playing with polyunsaturated fat and monounsaturated fat will have much better impact on cholesterol, and then will help to decrease the risk of heart attack or cardiovascular disease. Whereas SAFA, and that's where we have this discussion on the health perspective, it has a negative impact. And that's why in some countries, in some areas, you would have a better consumer perceptions for lower SAFA containing oils.
Yeah, and those are, if we go back to the chart, okay, those with low SAFA, high oleic, olive oil, canola, okay, palm and coconut are the highest in saturated fat. That's another of the pressures that we are facing currently, right? It's the less healthy oil. Those are the less healthy oils, right? Then you have sunflower, corn, and even soy, okay, are having quite reduced SAFA levels, okay, and high mono and poly. Sorry.
Mono, yeah. Yeah, we cover that as well in the file afterwards. And so that's from a nutritional, what is the fat, what are the different fatty acids, but how does that work in a behavior as an oil in frying? So for example, you would have the different oils, because of their composition, will have different impact on coloration, on crispiness, on off flavor and stability. And that is amongst the highest level of attributes. But we have some other knowledge or some other expertise, but it's really what is driving most of the time the choice of the oils blends. And so you see, for example, high oleic has a very light coloration, gives slightly less crispiness. And I would still like to say crispiness is always a bit touchy, because when you have a fry, by the time you actually consume it, although we know we always want to have it as short as possible, even if you have 5 or 10 minutes, then the crispiness difference is not necessarily perceivable. But it's just as a background on how we look at it. Whereas, for example, when you look at flavor, rapeseed is known for having a very strong off note. Though, if you look back at the market, even I take again the example of Europe, but in UK, which is a rapeseed growing market, you have a lot of customer, and you are using actually pure rapeseed for your fries, whereas in continental Europe, this will not be accepted because it will have a too high smell and a too much kind of acidic notes in the kitchen, and a bit also on the product. So really, it even within one area, one geography, you might have, depending on the countries, different kind of acceptance.
Yeah.
And
at the end, we all made based on what we have been eating our entire life, right? So what we, for instance, in Spain or France, perceive as a high of flavor or of taste, in UK not, in North America neither, okay, and all the way around, okay. Our taste preferences are very much determined by our education.
I even take the example of the field. So when you grow rapeseed, you can really smell it when it's flowering. So country or areas, region that never had that, they are not really experienced with that. What also counts a lot, of course, is about stability of the fry of the oil, and because that has a whole impact on your fry life when we speak in your case. So what is about how long am I going to use my oil? How often will I have to change it? what is the cost on my kilograms of food that I have fried. So it's really about the cost in use. So that's where you always need to find back. But everything that Magdalena has mentioned about capacity, price, volatility, and everything, but also how long and how much you can use. So sometimes something might sound more expensive, but actually, if it has a very high stability, it's still very relevant to look at that. So that's where we are playing, and that's where palm is known being very stable. That's why it's sometimes very difficult to change. High oleic sunflower is also very stable. Rapeseed is in between, a bit better than sunflower. Sunflower is the least of the stable oil in a frying environment.
So at the end, depending on your needs, and your needs might differ market to market, brand to brand as well, depending on your needs, you don't have one single oil type that would work or that would meet your requirements, right? You need to blend different ingredients in order to get the right cost level, right sustainability, right taste, right crispiness, etc., etc.
And that's indeed what I was going to on. So now you have that as a pure component, but that the reason of, for example, blending that. So I like to take the example of high oleic sunflower, which is very performing in terms of frying. But if your operations are you might not need that level of stability because you anyway have fried products. You need to have good filtering operation. And even though you would use that, there's a chance that you will never use it as much as you could because of it's getting too dirty or it's getting colored, not exactly, and it has an impact on your food. So it's very important to use the high oleic sunflower to the level you need, to the percentage in your blend that you need, and then compromise it with others like rapeseed and sunflower for Europe. But so again, coming back on that, it's really each components and each oils have its own properties and its own value, and then you need to compromise on the rest, which brings me to the next.
I
we've
would
tried
say,
to. Sorry, you want to add? Yeah.
We're gonna see. We have developed a nice comparison of all the different oils that exist in the world. Okay, and in terms of production, where it's being grown, oil content, nutritional, organoleptic, frying stability, just for you to have a kind of an understanding on what can you expect from each of those. Maybe we don't go in detail through every single one because I would like to leave like
no, you're right.
For open questions. But yeah.
But it was to show you how different I will not necessarily cover. So in the first part, you have all related to the sunflower, rapeseed oil, seeds oils, and then you have the main one with soya and palm in the second part of the as well as coconut, of course, in that file. Although I'll update it because the SAFA level of palm and coconut is very high, so it should actually, that's one of the drivers where sometimes you have to change SAFA, so I will adjust that. But basically, you will go back also on the bottom, you have the organoleptical part, where you see some of the oils, like I mentioned, rapeseed has green fishy odor when you warm it up. So in some countries, like in the UK, you can use it 100%, whereas in continental Europe, you will not use it. It has a medium frying stability, so it's still very valid to have it as a blend. But for example, our sensory research has shown that if you don't use it above 30% in Europe, again, as depending on the consumer you speak to, you are not going to perceive it in your finished product nor in your kitchen. Whereas if you take corn is also an interesting component, but for example, when you look at its production, it's very low in terms of volume. So sometimes the position that you can have or the value that you can get is a bit more difficult to have that.
So usually, the lower the production is, usually, yeah, there are always exceptions. Every year there is an exception, but structurally, the lower the production is, the higher the price is, and the higher the volatility. Okay, so you might have great oils like the high oleics, canola or sunflower high oleic, but its production is very little. That means that they are going to be more expensive and very volatile. So you need to be super careful about how much of that oil you use, okay, in spite of its great attributes, right? On contrary, you have palm oil that is the less healthy and the less sustainable, but then it's a cheaper, or usually, structurally, usually is the cheaper, or the cheapest, sorry. And so you need to find the right balance. You need to rank, okay, and prioritize your needs in order to select the type of oil you're going to be using in each region, okay? And then we go to the,
Yeah.
Everything has moved? No. To the specialties. Because we have received many, it's something very common, and I can imagine that for you guys as well. Look, my colleagues in India are using this oil. My colleagues in Brazil are using cotton oil. I want to use cotton oil in Europe. I'm sorry, we don't have cotton oil. And cotton oil in Europe is extremely expensive because its availability, it's a global production. Cotton oil, it's only 5 million metric tons and it's mostly consumed in Latin America or North America. It doesn't get to Europe. And when it gets to Europe, it's super, super expensive. Or recently, we received a request about rice bran oil, okay? Global rice bran oil consumption, production, sorry, it's only 1.8 million metric tons, okay? So it's mostly used in Southeast Asia, okay? And yeah, and in certain countries, it's a nice oil, and when available, it's very much demanded. But in Europe, we don't have access to that, for instance, and if eventually gets access, okay, it's very expensive and complex. Yeah, I don't know, Blanche, if you want to add anything on the special.
No, it was more and again, what we were saying with Magdalena at the end was that it could be that for some region where it's actually grown, it's still interesting. So that doesn't mean that it's not of area of exploration together with you, but it's more than if that's just for bringing it into areas where it doesn't make sense, that's more basically the message. And again, that document was a bit like a work in progress always, so we keep on updating it. So if you have any special additional insights that you'd like to see, feel free to also let us know. We are trying to build that so you have a sort of road book, or let's say roadmap of things that you can encounter, and then you can say, oh, about this, what is it? So you have at least some basic information, and we are available for any additional insights if we have there. Any question or?
I think that this is what we prepared for today. Okay, I don't know if you have any questions. Okay, so I would say open questions, and as well topics that you would like or you need to learn more about, okay, for future sessions.
I know that there's a few questions in the chat that we can follow up on. We'll send everyone here an email with a link to the video as well as the deck itself. And there was a couple questions that we can address. Certainly realize we're already over time, but Magda and Blanche, you guys did a great job of squeezing 3 hours into a quick view here. So appreciate that. And yeah, if anyone has any questions right now, feel free, but want to be respectful of folks' time as well.
Yeah, I just want to say huge thanks to the Cargill team. That was really helpful and a lot of information to go through, but I felt like you were really concise and summarized it quite well, especially for some people who are new to the category. So appreciate that. But yeah, Brian, we'll consolidate any follow-up questions. And also, the Cargill Europe team has a great relationship with the Yum team today already, but if there's any, as you saw, they do have really extensive global scale. So any interest to get in contact with their local teams, just reach out to myself and I'll connect you with Brian to help facilitate that.
Sounds good. Yeah, and please, feel free to reach out to any of us as well too if you have specific questions. Nas, I think we'll be in touch since you're kind of taking the helm over the next few months. So.
And I think I need the 3 hours.
The 3-hour version.
3-hour session. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I agree with
Absolutely.
Ashley. This is very informative.
We can organize as many sessions as want. Okay, so that's our job. So happy to do so. So don't. We always say there is no stupid question, and it takes time. Okay, to get. Took me 15 years, so hopefully for you it will be shorter, right? But we are here to help. Okay, so please ask. Do not limit yourself in terms of questions or request. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right.
Thanks, everyone.
Very good.
Awesome.
Thank you all. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Good day.
Bye-bye.